What do you want done with your body when you die? It's a question you may or may not have considered before. In 2015, roughly half of the people who died in the United States were cremated and half were buried. But these death practices have some environmental impacts that you might not be aware of. In a traditional burial, the body is embalmed to slow decomposition. It is pumped full of toxic preservatives before it is buried in a hardwood casket with synthetic cushioning, metal clasps, and sometimes even concrete reinforcement. About 800,000 gallons of embalming fluid, primarily formaldehyde, are dumped into the soil of U.S. burial sites every year. Not only do the chemicals essentially turn the soil into toxic waste site, but they can even infiltrate groundwater. Moreover, traditional cemeteries often require lots of land and intensive management. Maintenance personnel use gas-powered mowing equipment as well as fertilizers and pesticides that further harm the environment. Unfortunately, cremation is not much better. Instead of harming soil or water quality, cremation primarily impacts air quality. The cremation process requires a large quantity of fossil fuels and releases air pollutants like carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and mercury from dental fillings. In 2015, 55,000 tons of carbon were released into the atmosphere from U.S. cremations alone. That's equivalent to the carbon footprint of 7,500 households in a year. Studies have also found that living in close proximity to crematoria is associated with increased risks of heart disease, lung cancer, and adverse birth outcomes. Clearly, there are some issues with traditional death practices. In burial and cremation, the dead are contained in special death spaces, separated from everyday environments for living. They are removed and destroyed, which is known as disposal. Alternative death practices instead employ dispersal, by which the dead are reincorporated into living environments and their nutrients nourish the earth. One such practice is called natural burial. Natural burial does not use embalming or fancy caskets, but rather allows the body to decompose at a natural rate, or sometimes at an accelerated rate. For example, two Italian designers developed something called a tree pod burial. The body is placed in a biodegradable burial pod that nourishes a tree just above it. This method challenges the lawn cemetery aesthetic and allows for more diverse vegetated landscapes, or memory forests. Another variation of the natural burial is the mushroom suit. The burial suit is infused with mushroom spores that grow to produce edible mushrooms while also remediating toxins in the decomposing body. Natural burials like this not only reduce soil, water, and air pollution, but also can protect green spaces. When an environmental refuge is turned into a green burial site, the status of the land changes and it cannot be claimed by eminent domain for environmentally damaging projects. Additionally, green burials can establish a sense of place, which may connect people to their environment and community. But natural burial isn't the only alternative death practice available. Alkaline hydrolysis is a process by which the body is placed in a water-alkali mix and dissolved under heat and pressure. The remaining bones may be placed in a cremulator and turned to ash. Cryomation is another eco-friendly alternative. This practice involves freezing the body with liquid nitrogen and then breaking it into tiny ash-like pieces between two vibration plates. Both methods preclude atmospheric emissions, making them far less harmful to air quality than cremation is. Finally, donation to science is another important option to consider. Donation centers at medical schools receive bodies, and the schools allocate them to educate future physicians about human anatomy. After use in the teaching lab, the remains are managed according to the wishes of the deceased. The medical schools cover all associated costs and even hold a special service for the deceased. Evidence shows that natural burials, alkaline hydrolysis, and cryomation are associated with smaller environmental impacts than traditional burial and cremation are. Nevertheless, it is important to respect religious or cultural death practices, as well as individual preferences for the treatment of remains. Just remember this: your impact on the earth continues after death. So, leave a legacy that you're proud of.